Hey folks, it's Ray, Rainmaker.com here, and today I've got a full in-depth review of the GoPro Max Lens Mod. This is a lens mod for the Hero 9 camera, only the Hero 9 camera, and it basically gives you more stabilization options, a wider field of view, and a couple other interesting tricks that we'll get to in just a moment. Now this is finally shipping today. Yes, today it's finally available and shipping and purchasable and all that kind of stuff. Costs $99, though if you're a GoPro Plus, now just called a GoPro subscriber, then you get it for 30% off or $70. And I'm going to walk through all the pros and cons of it. Now, the first bit is getting it installed. So moving this out of the way for a second, it comes in this little case right here, protective case. It's got a cover you can put on it. So you've got that top part, and then there's the bottom part, and then it pulls out there. It's a little bit tricky, but there you go, just like that. So put that on the table. And then here, I'm going to put it on this camera right here. Again, it fits on any GoPro Hero 9 camera, which is only one type. You just take your existing lens and you simply twist it and pull it off like this. You can put that in that little case if you want to. And then you take this one and you line it up and you twist it. And it's done. You're now installed. It's really simple as that. Now the lens mod is fully waterproof, the same waterproof spec as the Hero 9, so you can go, snorkeling, all that kind of stuff, no problem at all. But just like with the Hero Max, it doesn't really work that well for underwater film capture, and that's because of the distortion that happens on this lens. So in this case, if you remember from my Hero Max review, underwater it was more or less useless, but at least it's good like for water protection and stuff like that. Now once you have it installed, enabling it is really easy. All you're going to do is you're going to swipe down from the top like this, and then you'll choose this little icon right there. That's the Max Lens Mod icon, and now it says Max Lens Mode is enabled. Now that's somewhat notable because there are no electronics in the lens mod itself. It is purely just a lens cap, if you will, that goes on top of that, which means that in theory, third parties could also make the same sort of thing, but the software on the Hero 9 is what allows it to understand the specific optics of this particular lens. Now before we dive into all the settings, we need to do a bit of a primer on terms. There's three terms in particular we have to kind of understand: horizon lock, horizon leveling, and max HyperSmooth mode. They mean different things, and it's important to understand the nuances of them to be able to figure out whether or not this will actually make sense for you. So the first one is horizon lock. And the idea behind this is that I can take the camera and turn it completely upside down and back again, and the entire image will stay just flat, as if it was on this never-ending gimbal that kept the camera itself corrected. And there's two ways to kind of demonstrate this. First, I'm going to go ahead over here and I'm going to record on both of these, so you can see it's recording like that. And now watch not only what this camera is doing, but what the recorded images are doing here as I rotate this like this upside down. So you can see that the one with the Max Lens Mod on this right-hand side here stays level the entire time. Here's another way of looking at it. I got it like this. I'm going to turn it back towards myself just for fun, and I'm going to go upside down. And you're watching the one with the Max Lens Mod stayed perfectly level the entire time versus the other one went upside down, and I turn it back like this and it's right side up. You can see this exact same effect as I'm running down the street right here. In this case, it's showing me I'm holding my arm out. You can see my arm just flip over the side of the edge and back again, but it looks completely like I've just kept the camera level the entire time. Now, the way this works is it uses this larger field of view to crop more in there and be able to make that rotation within this kind of larger field of view. The concept isn't new. 360-degree action camera has been doing it for years, including the GoPro Max last year, and it's literally called horizon lock on this as well. So that isn't new. Now the downside of this is that you lose resolution. So in the case of the Max lens mod on the GoPro Hero 9, you see it's limited to 2.7K, versus over here, it's at 5K. So you lose a little resolution there to be able to make that kind of rotation within that. Speaking of things to be aware of, if you're finding this video interesting or useful, simply whack that like button at the bottom there. It really helps out the channel and the video quite a bit. Now the next term is horizon leveling. That's something that was introduced on the Hero 9 Black. It was technically in the Hero 8 camera, but it required the app to make it the adjustment after the fact. And you can see horizon leveling on this icon right there in the corner. When I tap on this there, it says linear plus horizon leveling. Might be kind of tough to see. There we go, just like that. And that means it'll keep it level. So to demonstrate this, I'm going to record again. And watch what happens as I churn and start to rotate. Still level, and boom. About 30 degrees when shooting in 5K and about 45 degrees when shooting in 4K, it can withstand and keep the image level. So this is useful if you've just mounted it slightly offset, or if you're trying to film someone and just be able to go like this and keep it nice and level the entire time. But it's super useful. In the case of the Max Lens Mod though, you'll see that I can go all the way around now as opposed to just that first little bit there. So again, going slowly and boom, now it pops over. Now for me, in sort of my day-to-day scenarios, I find that horizon leveling covers just about everything I want. Probably because I have a bit of like a life mantra that says that my ass should not be above my head. So in most cases, there's not a scenario where I'm upside down. That's just how I try to live my life. But if you are upside down more often than I, that's awesome. Or if you just happen to use your camera upside down. So those scenarios where you may undersling it, for example, and just be able to go upside down like this and know the shot is still good. Like on a selfie stick off the side of the car or whatever the case is, it makes it a lot easier to get that shot than trying to have to flip it over again. Now finally, we've got the Max HyperSmooth Mode term to talk about before we get into all the settings and stuff. And if you think about the GoPro world of stabilization, there's no stabilization, which is horrendous. You don't want that. There's HyperSmooth, which is pretty darn good. There's HyperSmooth Boost, which is really darn good. And then there's Max HyperSmooth Mode, which is crazy, like stabilized. You can turn your camera and all that kind of fun stuff, and it's really, really good. With the Max Lens Mod, you get that new option. So if you go back to the settings here to show you side by side, you'll see we tap on the Max Lens Mod, the pencil icon. You can see Max HyperSmooth Mode is on. Now with the Lens Mod, there's only on or off. It's either all stabilization or Max Mode, versus over here on a Hero 9 without this, you can see there's three options there. There's base, HyperSmooth 3.0, or boost. So again, three different levels there. And essentially that controls a little bit of the crop that you get. So when you turn off stabilization, you get a slightly wider view. When you turn it on, it crops them a little bit there. Now the thing is, for the most part, Max HyperSmooth Mode is good, but it's not that much better than Boost because Boost is so good by itself. And to show you the side-by-side mountain biking, you can see that, yeah, there's some slight differences there, but the vast majority of those differences come more from horizon leveling and horizon lock than they do from max versus regular boost mode. Which isn't to say there aren't use cases where those will work, but in the vast majority of cases, you're really not going to notice any difference between those two. The main thing that you would notice would be the slightly wider viewing angle of the Max Lens Mod versus regular super view on the Hero 9 Black. Which then you may be asking, well, what about comparing the Max Lens Mod to the GoPro Max? Well, there's a couple core things. One is that you actually get higher resolution in a single lens mode with the Hero 9 Black and the Max Lens Mod than the GoPro Max. So the Hero 9 tops out at 2.7K 60 frames per second with the Super View Max Lens Mod on there, versus this actually only tops out at 1440p 60 frames per second. So that's something to keep in mind in Super View mode. Again, shooting at single lens mod. If you're shooting at 360, then you get more overall range, but once you crop that down and reframe it, you're basically back to 1080p anyways. So you're not really getting as much resolution as you would out of the Hero 9 with the lens mod. And then just for fun, here's some side-by-side footage between the GoPro Hero 9 with the lens mod and the GoPro Max, showing you that you are obviously getting a little bit wider viewing angle out of the GoPro Max than you would out of the GoPro Hero 9 with the Max Lens mod. So if that's something you want, or you really need that extra wide, then that might be a reason to do that. Or if you simply want the 360 capabilities of the GoPro Max. Those I've said for a while now, for 99% of the people out there, you're better off just getting a normal action camera than dealing with the 360 workflow of something like the GoPro Max or the Fusion before it. Okay, now before we get to some of the Debbie Downer bits, we got to talk one more cool feature, which is probably my favorite feature of the Max Lens Mod, portrait mode orientation lock. And I know this sounds like, no, not portrait mode, but trust me, it'll be impressive in just a second. So what we got here is the cameras side by side, Max Lens Mod, not Max Lens Mod, and I'm just going to rotate them like this, and you see it goes into portrait mode automatically. That's not new, it's been there for a while now. But now I'm going to start recording, again, Max Mod down here, not Max up there, and I'm going to rotate back like this. And what you see is this stays rotated, which is super important because now I can go ahead and I can mount it on a chesty, I can mount it on anything, I can mount it on any mount I want, and it's still shooting as if it was shooting the correct portrait orientation. And I know to you looking at the camera here, it looks sideways, but if you're watching the recorded video in the corner right now, it looks correctly oriented, which is a super big deal. And it's big because the vast majority of GoPro mounts out there are designed to be mounted on a flat surface. They're not usually designed to be mounted sideways like this. Now, the one minor caveat to this, though, is that you have to be at least temporarily oriented like this before you press the record button. Once the record button is pressed, it'll stay in that orientation. But like on a bike, if I've got it mounted to a bike, I've got to pick up the bike and get it like this before I hit the record button. Not a big deal per se, but a little more difficult if I was, say, mounted to like a car using some sort of like hard locked in, tightened with the, screwdriver or something like that mount, then that's not quite as easy to do. Okay, now we've talked about all the good. Let's let's talk about some of the not so good. So we go back over here to the camera, and we've got the lens mod on there, and we choose max video. And what you'll see right away, once I get it to show up, is there's only one mode. There's only max video mode. You can't choose other quick select modes there like you can other things. And for video, that's not really necessarily the end of the world. You're losing though the high resolutions. There's no 5K, there's no 4K. You're also losing the zoom options, for example. Those aren't here as well either. And again, on video, it's not a huge deal. Where it's more problematic is photo mode. So let me just swipe over to that. Photo. And what you see here down the bottom, if I choose the regular camera, come on, is I have photo, live, burst, night mode, but over here, I just have max photo. I lose live burst, I lose night mode, I lose a lot of those modes that you might actually want to use with this, which is too bad because I would love to be able to use, for example, a burst mode with this, but I can't do that. And you can see as you go into the settings here, you also lose some of the capabilities there as well. So you lose, for example, super photo and stuff like that. It just is what it is. It's very minimal when it comes to photos taking. And then the last one is on the time lapse and time warp setting. Here in time warp, if we go on the regular without the max lens mod, you see we have time warp, time lapse, night lapse. We can add modes, no problem. Over here, we just have time warp. There is no other mode. There's no time lapse mode or night lapse mode. So it's not really great for using in the nighttime because you don't have those modes there anymore to control that. And of course, you also lose resolution because you're limited to 2.7K, up to 4.3 in the time warp mode there, versus you could do 4K time lapses without the max lens mod. Now, Pro Tune settings are the same across both of them, best I can tell. So you do still have like high bit rate and that kind of stuff, and then be able to control exposure and all that. That's all there. So you can kind of fake some of the night modes if you needed to, but it's not as easy as a one-tap option. Now, again, remember, you're not like physically losing those options. They're still there. In fact, you can see this if I swipe down and just undo the max lens mod. They're right there. They're still all there. But now if you look at this camera, you see on the outside edge, there's that black ring because it's trying to use this mod here, thinking it's this lens over here, the regular lens. So you got to swap back and forth. So I wouldn't do it all the time. I would try to keep it something that happens fairly rarely. Okay, so let's sort of recap a little bit. I've got a little bit of like a pros and cons left here. Number one, the main benefits are that you get a bit of a wider shot, not much, just a tiny bit wider than previous. Number two, the biggest one, that you can lock the horizon, that rotation all the way around if you want to. That's useful in scenarios where you are rotating a lot, again, having your ass above your head, but it's also useful just for portrait mode. That's probably my favorite feature here, is that portrait mode locking ability and being able to put it back like this. That's pretty great. Max HyperSmooth is a benefit as well, though practically speaking, it hasn't really been too much of a difference. It's fairly minor in the grand scheme of things. And then the waterproofing is also there as normal, so that's pretty good as well. On the downside, you lose those night modes, you lose the time-lapse options. Again, lose is all relative, they're still there, but you just can't access them with the lens mod itself. And of course, having to swap it back and forth is a little bit of a bummer as well over time in terms of like getting dust there and stuff like that. And I suppose the price would also be one of those things. Overall though, I'm pretty impressed with this. I was not impressed with the display mod, as some of you might have seen a week or two ago, but this mod I like. And I think I would recommend this mod for people, especially that are using the GoPros to film Instagram stories. That's probably like the biggest benefit of this lens mod. And also for people that, again, happen to be upside down quite a bit. But I think for the majority of people, the stabilization on the Hero 9 Black and the way it can horizon level is already so good that it probably reduces the need a little bit for the max lens mod. But I'm excited about what they might be able to do with this sort of technology down the road. I will use the max lens mod for kind of things here and there, not all the time, but I'll use it occasionally. But I'd love to be able to see them do something else with this down the road, again, with different lenses and stuff like that, or maybe allow third parties to tap into this and to have the software updated as well to be able to take advantage of those third-party lenses. That'd be cool. With that, hopefully you found this interesting or useful. If so, go ahead and whack that like button at the bottom there, or hit the subscribe button for plenty more sport technology goodness. Also, you can check out my full GoPro Hero 9 Black review up in the corner there, or the display mod up in the corner there, or eventually the media mod for the Hero 9 Black up in the corner there. All the things are up in the corner there. You know the drill. With that, have a good one.